1975. The front door creaked open. A smooth summer breeze fluttered in. The shine of the sunlight creeped through the door, casting a shadow of a little girl at the doorstep. The little girl came home. Her lone father noticed the shadow while in the kitchen and realized it was one of his 2 daughters. They both went out about 5 hours ago in the morning to play on a nearby ranch and barn. The father was happy to see his daughter home, but he quickly realized something. Where is my other little girl? He got down on his knees so he could be eye level with his child. Amy, where's your sister? He asked, putting his hands on her shoulder. Amy didn't respond. She had a neutral, blank expression on her face. No emotion was present. Her big, green eyes blankly sparkled and stared back at her dad. The dad asked a couple more times, each more demanding than the last. The dad became frustrated. Go inside and sit down on the couch and stay in there, the dad ordered Amy. Don't go anywhere else. The dad put on his boots and went out to the barn, hoping his other daughter was still there. He walked through the wheat field and saw the large 2-story rusted old barn out in the distance. He went inside the barn and was calling out his other child's name. Alice! Alice! He called out. Where are you? It's time to come home. His voice echoed all throughout the barn. The dad was becoming more and more nervous, muttering, Please, God, underneath his breath. He climbed the ladder to the top of the barn, checking the top balconies, and rustled through the haystacks. Alice was not there. He left the barn to further investigate the entire ranch. When he walked out, around near the back of the barn, something caught in the corner of his eye. He stopped dead in his tracks. He noticed a little leg, twisted, with its bones sticking out. He ran over quickly. It was Alice. Her legs were snapped beyond degree, like she landed on them in the fall. Her tibia, lower leg bone, seemed to pierce through her flesh and poke out, causing blood to stream down her bare feet. On her other leg, her fibula was visibly twisted beyond degree. Her eyes were still open, and the blood was dripping out of her mouth. Her head had a large gash in it, with flies buzzing around it, feasting on her exposed brain. Fragments of the brain were showing, and some chunks of her brain swamped the dirt ground. Other parts of her brain seemed to be missing. Colonies of maggots slithered in and out of Alice's eyes, and one was crawling up her nose. A sliver of blood was dripping down the left side of Alice's mouth. The father bent down on his knees at the sight of what happened to his daughter, and tears quickly swelled up in his eyes, and he bursted out in sobbing. His stomach had dropped, and his chest and heart were clenching and aching. Naturally, the father called the paramedics to receive his daughter's mangled corpse, and for them to figure out what exactly had caused Alice's death. Later, he returned home. At the dinner table, later in the night, the father was absorbing everything that happened. He asked Amy what caused Alice to tragically die. Amy had not been eating the spaghetti that was served to her. She tried to eat, but was having a difficult time swallowing her dinner. When it was time for bed, the father noticed Amy's strange, trembling steps as she walked to her room. Her knees wobbled and her feet clenched. The father, very depressed and still shocked from everything that happened, decided to sleep on the floor in the same room as his daughter. He had just lost one of his little girls, and was immediately overprotective and worried about the only one he had left. He passed out after he tucked a very shaky Amy into bed. The next morning, the father woke up horrified yet again. He saw Amy on the floor, lying lifeless next to him on the floor, with a knife in her hand, near her father's head. He saw his reflection in the large kitchen knife, and he noticed he had a black crayon line sketched across his forehead. Not giving it much thought, he rushed the seemingly unconscious Amy to the hospital. She died in the hospital bed. To understand Amy's death, an autopsy was performed. The medical staff came back to the father, who was waiting in the room for hours. Well, we found chunks of brain tissue in between her teeth and her stomach. How did this happen? They asked the father.